It seems that there is a never-ending list of influencers on social media that have more aquariums than your local fish store. And a very troubling trend that really seems to have caught on with those that are chasing the algorithm or product sales is the idea of an everlasting self-sustaining ecosystem if you just add the right mix and depth of substrate. It doesn't matter what kind of substrate you use for aquatic plants, because aquatic plants prefer to uptake their nutrients directly from the water. In our aquariums, in the aquarium hobby, we always have some kind of livestock. For example, this aquarium has some snowball amano shrimp. Yes, these are snow white amano shrimp. And there's a bunch of babies from my longfin celestial pearl danio breeding project. Now, the waste that these little critters create is literally nature's perfect fertilizer. Now, how do I know that? Well, I'm the first hobbyist in history to take this fish, shrimp, and snail poop you see here at the bottom of my aquariums and send it off to a soil and wastewater analysis lab to find out exactly what's inside. You see, these professional laboratories are very, very accurate at testing waste for its values as fertilizer. The results of my test are not only shocking, but they disprove a ton of the myths that get talked about in the aquarium hobby like it's one big echo chamber. And one of the biggest myths is that aquarium plants should be treated like land plants. Now, before I explain more, it's important to understand how our aquarium plants eat. I'll show you the results of my lab testing. As you can see, this soil and wastewater lab analysis proves that aquarium waste from regular home hobbyist aquariums like mine contain copious amounts of nitrogen, carbon, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, sulfur, sodium, iron, manganese, zinc, and copper. And not only that, the C to N ratio of aquarium waste is 10:1. If you know anything about plant fertilizer, a 10:1 C to N ratio is the golden standard. So how is it that I can grow any aquarium plant without using any substrate? Now, first, when it comes to these aquariums that I use for these videos to explain how aquarium plants eat, one of the first things you'll likely notice is that there's no substrate. And I want to make it clear, I don't leave the substrate out of these aquariums I use for demonstration just because I don't like substrate or I think substrate is bad. The reason that I leave it out is to prove the point, which is aquarium plants don't need substrate. Even if I had several inches of gravel or soil in the bottom of this aquarium, there would be water in between each piece of substrate, and the roots of the plants would still be submerged in water. Now, if I had gravel, gravel is just rocks. Gravel holds plants down so they don't float away. Now, aquarium waste, which you see all on the bottom of this aquarium, can collect in between the pieces of gravel. But you don't need to have the gravel there. You just need a way to weigh down the plants. So in this aquarium, I've done that on some of the plants using plant weights like you would find at the pet store when you buy your plants. On some of the other plants, I've taken things like pieces of biomedia and just glued the base of the plant to the piece of biomedia. You can do the same thing with a small rock or pebble. It doesn't matter what kind of aquarium plant it is. Here you see beautiful Vallisneria growing with completely exposed roots to the main water column. Now, if those roots were submerged into a bed of gravel substrate, that doesn't mean that the roots are going to do anything differently than they're doing here in the water column. They're still feeding from the water. You see, the aquarium hobby likes to compare aquarium plants to terrestrial plants or land plants. As you can see here, a tree has a giant amount of roots. Aquarium hobbyists might call trees heavy root feeders. The reality is that the roots of plants are relative to the size of the plant, because if this giant tree didn't have a huge root system, it would fall over. It's no different in our aquariums. If a large aquarium plant like this Amazon sword here, if it didn't have a large root system, it would float away. As you can see, it's weighed down in the bottom of this aquarium and it's growing perfectly fine. Now, how is it that aquarium plants take in nutrients from water? It's important that I explain that because no one else in the aquarium hobby is. They do it through what's called passive transport. When it comes to land plants, that is plants on dry soil, they use what's known as active transport to take in nutrients from the dry soil. Now, aquarium plants use passive transport. The entire aquarium plant, the leaves, the stems, and the roots can take in nutrients directly from the water. Another great example would be this crypt. As you can see, the roots on this crypt are completely exposed to the water column, and they get more than enough nutrients from this aquarium waste that's sitting at the bottom of this aquarium. Now, am I saying that you need to immediately remove all your substrate and stop using substrate in your aquariums? Of course not. I'm simply using these no substrate planted minimalist aquascapes as an example to literally show you that these plants can grow just fine and even thrive simply uptaking nutrients directly from the water column. If you like deep dives on planted tanks, make sure you check out my channel, where I've got a very rare project going where I'm breeding colorful Amano shrimp using low-tech methods. Thanks for checking out the video, and we'll see you in the next one.